Díomh agus fáilte arás. You're all very welcome to another episode of Irish in Toronto. Today I'll be speaking with Gerry McLaughlin. I first met Gerry at a Pop-Up Gaeltacht in PG O'Brien's just before Christmas last year. Gerry is a retired English teacher and we hit it off discussing some of our favourite Irish authors. In this chat, Gerry describes his experience moving to Toronto in the 1990s from his hometown of Athenry and what made him stay. We chat about his journey with the Irish language and we discuss the year he spent in Ireland in 2008 where he made a film in Galway, and we discuss his children's relationship with their father's home country. I would still encourage people to download the episodes and to share them with friends and family. Downloads are the easiest indicator for me to gauge how many people I'm reaching with these conversations, so I would really appreciate it. I begin our chat by asking Gerry about when he came to Toronto.
1993. Yeah, I met a Canadian woman who was actually studying here at the Celtic Studies department. She was studying archaeology, and she met Conor Newman, who's a professor of archaeology in UCG or NUIG now, and he was in charge of this dig in Nobber, County Meath in '92, and actually in '91. I worked on the same dig in '91 and '92, and so I met her on that, and then came over here after. In '93, and then kind of moved here more permanently in '94, and that's what brought me here.
Were there many Irish here at the time in the early 90s?
I didn't really meet too many of them, even though I did have a good old friend from Limerick, Gerry Crow, who passed away there a couple of years ago, 86, who was actually one of the founding members of the Toronto Irish Players, and he was heavily involved in the Irish community too. Like for the Irishman of the Year event, he would be the MC in any big events because he was really flamboyant and confident, and a real character. So I knew him because he was friends with a man from Athenry, Charlie King, who had come here in the 50s and done very well, and moved back to Athenry and set up business there, a kind of a warehouse, a builder supply place. And Gerry Crow used to come back in the summers, and it was friends with the family. So when I came here then, I knew him back then, and when I came here, I contacted him. And actually, I did. I mean, when I say I didn't know too many people. I didn't know too many people my age, and I didn't know if they were there. They didn't seem to be. But I knew all these people who had come out in the 60s, maybe the 50s and the 60s. And, and so because Gerry Crow, who would have been sort of at the heart of the Irish community, would have introduced me. And, he'd have them at parties, and some of them I'm still friends with. In fact, there's a couple who live nearby me in the junction, Ed O'Connor and his wife, Pat, who's from Sligo. He's from Waterford, and so I see them regularly, and so they still have parties where they have the old kind of crew come out. So I meet them a couple of times a year, and so those were the Irish people that I knew, and there was other events too.
Like nowadays, people go online and they'll do Irish and New in Toronto, or they'll have friends out here. Did you essentially get off the boat knowing just that one person that you had met?
Yeah. Like there was no. I mean, there might have been. I think the internet was just about to start. I mean, I didn't even have a phone when I came here at first. People didn't have phones. I didn't have one, and but then that's like definitely around the mid 90s. I did. I guess maybe 96, 97. I must have had a phone, because I think everybody. But before that, there wasn't anything. So I would do things then, like I would go to the Galway Arms to watch the football games, and out in the Queensway, and it was run by.
People still go there.
They do, yeah, that's right. And it was run by a guy, Tommy Kane from Tuam in County Galway, and who's, as far as I know, his family still own that. His son or daughter, or maybe his wife is still there as well too. There. So there was nothing, like there was no other way. So Gerry Crow was really my big con. And then of course, and I did have there was one friend that I'm still friends with today, Sean Dunlop, who's actually, his father's from Dunfanaghy in County Donegal and his mother's from Corofin in County Galway. And I knew him through one of my best friends back at home, Roy Hessian, who's actually the principal of St. Coleman's College in Claremorris. But we went to school together and we went to university together. So he's a first cousin of Sean. So when I came here, I did know Sean, but actually not even well enough to kind of to call up. But I did bump into him down at the pub at church in Richmond, McVeigh's.
Yeah, of course.
So I used to go there actually quite a bit. So yeah, it's true. Then I kind of, I suppose I was good friends with Thomasina O'Reilly at the time as well too. Her parents were both from Kells. The father, Oliver O'Reilly, was a detective actually with the Toronto police, and so yeah, we would hang out there quite a bit. There was a few years where we were, we'd be down there a lot, and then we'd go to music sessions at Dora Keogh's, which is not Dora Keogh's anymore, but it's at Noonan's, yeah, at Broadview and the Danforth. Yeah, I mean, the other thing with me too is, I think a great thing for me would have been sports, but unfortunately I had gotten really badly injured in a car crash a few years before. Well, actually in 1987, and it meant I could never run or do those kinds of sports afterwards. Not that I didn't manage to stay active in other ways, but I couldn't play football and hurling, and I think that for me, just for the kind of person I was at the time, I would have been very into that, like that. That is something I would have if I could have, because I often look back and I wonder, well, why didn't I get involved with the Toronto Irish Players? And you get caught up then in you're trying to survive here. I came here, and I actually didn't have my teaching qualification. I mean, I had my teaching qualifications from NUIG or from University College Galway. And but I had to get them ratified through the Ministry of Education here, which is fair enough. But I had to wait for about a year, and so while I was waiting, I worked as a short order cook in a restaurant, which was a great lesson in life. Actually, it kind of made me realize. I mean, I liked it, I enjoyed it, but it's so busy. And I remember having this kind of epiphany after about a year working there, and the epiphany went along the lines of something like, the harder you work, the less money you make. And because that was hard work, and it wasn't a very pleasant environment sometimes. Like, people could be nasty to each other. And I thought, I would not like to have to work in this kind of line of work for the rest of my life. So that really drove me as soon as I got my teaching qualifications to get out there and get a job.
And you were happy. You said you didn't teach much in Ireland, so
No.
Teaching in Canada was kind of your first experience.
It was really, yeah, it was. And I was lucky then because I got a job in a private school called Braemar, which I think is still in operation, but it moved location. But it used to be at Young and Eglinton. And it was run by a woman who was a retired teacher. She was a Scottish woman, Sheila MacDonald, a lovely woman, and her son Blair. So they were fantastic. They took me on there. And it was a great place to start teaching because the classes were really small. And the kids were mostly from Hong Kong and Taiwan. And so I worked there for a couple of years before I started working, but I also started working night school as well. So I got a job working night school with the TDSB. So, I was quite busy.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And, I got that job. And then through that job, I got a job then with the York Region Board. And so I kept, even when I got the job with the York Region Board, I kept up the night school. And I also did summer school. And but it was a busy time because then I wanted to, because I had only a 3-year degree from Galway, so I wanted to move up on the pay scale. So I did 6 university courses here, all the while teaching night school and teaching day school and coaching a rugby team and having a young kid, getting married as well. So it was I don't know how, when I look back, I don't know how, because if it was now, I think I'd lie down someplace and fall asleep.
Did you realise at the time that you were kind of running at 100 miles an hour, or was it something you just had to do?
It was something I had to do, but I did like it. I think it was good to be busy. I was, yeah, I didn't mind it. I had the energy for it, and it was tough, but I think it was good. It was good. Like when I look back, I think it was good for me.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've seen other people here. I know another Irish guy from Cork, Gary O'Sullivan, who actually he just up until last year he ran grade 12 Ontario English courses in Ireland every summer. And he would bring, he'd get maybe, I don't know, 19 or 20 people, and they'd pay, and he'd bring them back to Ireland for a month, and they'd stay in Trinity, they'd stay in Galway, they'd stay in, and I think they'd stay in Cork, and he'd bring them always to see a hurling game,
I love that.
and all that kind of stuff. And I think down in Thurles as well too.
Yeah, that's good to hear.
Yeah, so anyway, but when Gary told me about what it was like when he got here first and all the work that he did, he did an awful lot. He was doing the same thing, like teaching night school, teaching day school, doing university courses, or doing a master's, I think, actually.
Yeah,
so really, really busy.
Yeah.
And I think that was definitely was a good experience. Yeah.
And the motivation to stay in Canada, was that, you mentioned having a child, was that kind of the initial motivation for maybe staying here more long?
No, I'd made my mind up at that stage I was going to stay. Yeah.
What contributed to that decision?
Well, I think, my wife really, I don't think she was too crazy about moving from Canada. So even though I had been thinking about it, I had to make a decision. So I made the decision, yeah.
And you were happy enough? Was there any regrets in that in any way?
Well, you always miss home, like, for sure. I mean, I go back all the time. I go back every summer. Yeah, I mean, but there would be times, especially for the first, I think up until around 2008, because in 2008 I took a year's leave of absence. You could do this kind of, they call it a 4/5, 4 years' wages spread over 5 years, and you can take the 5th year off. And so I went home with my wife and my two sons were young at the time. They were 3 and 5, and we moved to Galway. And that was a fantastic year for me. I made a film when I was back there too. I had won an award for a screenplay that I'd written when I did a screenwriting course at Ryerson. Well, it's not Ryerson anymore, but so when I went back to Ireland, I had no intention. I wanted to move back to Ireland to be with my family, and just because I missed it, and because I wanted to be there for the year. And it in many ways it turned out to be a bad year, because it was the year of the big economic crash, the property bubble, and all that carry on. And it actually, I had thought that I was going to substitute teach, but they actually took away funding for any substitute teaching that year because things got so bad. So I was kind of depending on that. But I mean, I still had my salary from here, so it wasn't the end of the world. But and I did actually. I got a job I worked for McCambridge's fine foods and wine store in Galway for a year, in charge of their Christmas hamper business. They have this warehouse, which I actually really enjoyed because it was so different from teaching.
Yeah.
And so that was a nice experience. But then, as I say, that film, I had no intentions, but I met up with an old friend of mine, John O'Donnell from Clonbur, and he's actually the kind of chief liaison between the travelling community and the social services in Galway, if not the west of Ireland. And I showed him the screenplay. It's only 15 pages. And he said, I know some guys that they often do documentaries with me, and he said they're looking for a creative project, and he said I bet they'd love to do this. So I went to meet them and showed it to them, and they agreed to do it. They didn't agree. They said, yeah, let's do it. And so that was really exciting. And so we kind of did it. It was like guerrilla filming. We didn't have permits. We would just go places and just film.
Yeah.
And we really didn't have any budget to speak of. And I put out a casting call in Galway, and I got this really great actor. His name is Callahan O'Connell, and you would, if you looked him up, you'd find him on IMDb, and he was in plays, and so I needed someone who was going to play a kind of a Galway gangster, and he had. I'm not going to go into his background too much, but he had a lot of that. So when he saw the casting call for the posters, and he saw that it was what the log line of the story was, he called me up straight away, and he was brilliant to have because I think everyone else was really amateur. Maybe there was actually one of the other people in the film was Molly in the Morning. I don't know if you ever remember him on Galway Bay FM. So his name is Neil Malloy. He's from Athenry, and he was actually a family friend, and he's also an actor as well too. He's really good. So he and Callahan were the two real professionals, and then everybody else, were just amateurs who wanted to do something, and it took a lot of bravery on I think a lot of the parts of a lot of the people, but we got it together. Full credit to the two filmmakers, Kieran and Dave. They really, in terms of direction, I'm kind of credited as the director, but really it was kind of definitely a joint effort, and so we workshopped the film for a couple of months before, which I think was really good, because then we added a lot of dialogue, and we didn't really change the story that much, but it got a bit longer, which was fine. And but there was one moment though where I think things were, we were dragging our feet a bit, and Callahan O'Connell called me, and he said, "Look," he said, "are we going to do this or not? What's going on?" And I said, "Okay." And I called Dave and Kieran, the two filmmakers. I said, "If we don't, we need to set up a schedule to get filming now, because I don't want to lose Callahan." And so we did, and then I called everybody back within a day or two and said, "Look, here's the schedule. We're going to start filming next week in Galway and in Willie Campbell's pub in Cloughan-Over in Headford, where we did a lot of the scenes there actually, and we did scenes at the back of the Roisin Doves in Galway, and we did scenes in other various kind of parts of Galway. I mean, if you're from Galway, you would recognise there's a lot of stuff out on the west side as well too. Yeah.
And that year in Ireland at that stage, it was too late to ever go back at that stage. But did it entice you in any way?
I mean, it definitely did. Yeah, it did. I guess too, I'd sort of been hoping that my wife got a couple of, at the time she was a sort of a web designer. That kind of work, and so she got a few jobs, but I think if stuff had happened for her and she had managed to land a good job, then I think we might have. But then the other thing was too, it was there didn't seem to be, well, especially with the economy having tanked, I think that really put a dampener on it.
Yeah.
So at the end of the year, then we just moved back, and I mean I kind of came back, and because I had the job here. It's hard, sometimes it's hard to walk away from the security as well too. You have the job, you've got the healthcare, you've got the, everything. So, but it was great to get it out of my system.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah. But and it's not that I never would. Like I'd really, I've just retired last year, and I'm kind of, I went back home for 7 weeks in October and November. And I'd love to be able to spend a lot more time back there like that. So, we kind of look at maybe, getting someplace there, but it's so expensive back there now as well too. And especially, the other thing that I found is, I've never noticed it as much as this October, was the exchange rate between the Canadian dollar and the euro. Oh, it's brutal.
Yeah, we're getting hit hard.
We're really getting hammered, yeah.
Would your relationship with Ireland, like your accent is as strong as it ever was, I'd say. Your knowledge of even friends you have at home and things like that in different parts of Galway, you seem to still have a strong relationship with home. Did that change much as the time went on since you've been here over 30 years?
I mean, it's hard to say how things would have gone if I had lived back there, but I do remember, making a point of keeping in touch with everybody. But it's much easier in your hometown. I mean, so these are people that I went to school with, like to primary school with, and to national school, and then actually I didn't go to secondary school with a lot of them because I went to boarding school. I went to Jarlath's and Tuam. But I met a whole other.
That's where the love of football came.
Well, no, I had it from my father anyway, because my father went to Jarlath's too, and he has an All Ireland medal with them from 1964. They beat Mells in the final. So, but definitely it grew in Jarlath's for sure. Yeah, and I really made a point of keeping in touch with a lot of people, and especially in my hometown, and then with a couple of people that I'd gone to, to Jarlath's with. It was important to me to keep up those relationships. I really didn't want to, and even if it amounted to me coming home for a month in the summer, and then I'd call up everybody or text them and say, look, I'm going to be down in the Fields bar in Athenry tonight, and we'd arrange something like that so that you're, and then it's good to. I mean, I find with a lot of people, sometimes, like I still have my good friend Roy from Currafin. We'll talk from time to time, and over the last few years too, I kind of rekindled friendships with some people from Jarlath's, like Andrew Dillon from Castlerea, and Kieran McDonough from Carrow, and Andrew Murray, and we actually this I was home. I said October. I actually came home at the end of September for a Jarlath's reunion, or 40-year reunion. So that was amazing too. I had no idea how that was going to go. I guess nobody does, But it turned out to be a really epic night. It was fantastic to meet everybody, and it was just a really great experience. And it was great to kind of rekindle some of the old friendships as well too.
Out of curiosity, were many of that group living abroad? If you're graduating 40 years ago, 1985,
very few.
Okay,
very few. There was one, John Gannon from the Neil. God, he's either from the Neil or from Kilmaine, but he's in Australia. There's Gerry May, who's from Kong or the Neil. He's in the States. No, he didn't come back for it. I think he couldn't. I think he tried. And then there was let me see. Well, who else? There was Andrew Derrig. Well, Andrew Derrig was one of the only Americans in the school. So, he came back for the reunion, but he was American anyway. I don't know I can't remember what his connection was, how he ended up in Charlotte's. And, most of them hadn't moved. No, most of them had stayed there in the west of Ireland. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, just for that time period, a lot of people would have been leaving.
They would have, yeah.
So I'm just curious. And you chose Toronto, or Toronto chose you, as you said.
Right, yeah.
Was there ever... Toronto has changed from the mid-90s to now, obviously. Have you enjoyed the changes that have gone on here in the last 30 years? Was it always this busy, or have you always remembered it as being a big, bustling city?
Yeah, it's always been the same. Yeah, that way. I mean, there's definitely other changes. All right, I'm kind of thinking now, but in terms of the busyness and the diversity, I remember when I got off the airport arriving here for the first time. I suppose this is just a sign of my own naivety and inexperience at the time, but I was so shocked to see so many people with turbans at the airport. I don't know what I was thinking. I had this simplistic idea in my mind that there's no way that people from that part of the world would come to someplace cold like Canada. It's very simplistic. I had Yeah, it was definitely part of my own naivety and experience. I was really coming here expecting to see mostly white people and, like lumberjack type guys. I'm not even joking. So when I got here and I saw that wasn't the case at all, it was pretty. It was pretty. I won't say shocking, but I was surprised.
You probably hadn't done much traveling before you moved here.
No,
I assume. Yeah.
No, I hadn't. No. I mean, I'd been as a kid. I would have gone to London and England a lot. Because like a lot of Irish people, I have a lot of cousins there, and aunts and uncles. So we would have gone there. And actually, I worked. When I was 18, I worked for a summer in London But I spent most of it out in Buckinghamshire, which is kind of outside. And then I spent about 4 months in Holland picking tulip bulbs when I was 20. So, so that was my only, so very little experience, so I was very inexperienced.
That's more experience than I kind of say you're letting on. Like, not many people spend summers abroad and things like that, but still, I can imagine the naivety getting off the plane and just it's quite different from even today. Like, it's quite different from Royal Ireland. Never mind. 30 years ago. What would have, like, as I suppose your relationship, like, we met through you speaking the Irish language,
right? Yeah.
The two of us speaking the Irish language together at an event. Has that been something that you've always had from a young age, or something you've maintained as an adult? How was that been?
No. That was the first time for me, actually. That at the Pop-Up Gaeltacht, because I suppose. Well, I don't know if I was telling you at that how I got really inspired when I was home in October, when I was in Guidor in County Donegal, and I met Mairead Ní Bhreanáin from Clonard, and pardon me. But she was really. I was really impressed with her. She was super nice, very friendly, very warm. It was a real pleasure to meet her, and I'm a huge fan of Clonard, like really massive. I love them. I think what they've done for Irish traditional music is incredible. I think they're a very special kind of group, and they're all Irish speakers. And the other thing that impressed me on that trip as well too was that I noticed that a lot of people in Guidor and where we were in that area were, they weren't speaking Irish all the time, but they were speaking it sometimes, and they were willing to speak it. And I had an epiphany. I kind of realized that this is our language, and it was up until probably 100 years ago, or maybe a bit more. Everybody spoke it, and we had that taken away from us, and I thought. That was something that I realized in that moment. So I was determined that when I came back here that I was going to learn to speak Irish. I had. It's like a lot of people. I have the secondary school Irish, and also as a teacher, I would have had to have done some. I had to pass this Irish. What do I call it? Not vocal. Oral. Yeah. So I had to study for that, and which was fine. But I had really done very little apart from that, and so that's what was behind that. Yeah, so I hadn't been involved over the years, and
you were well able to speak that night. Like, you showed up, and I was kind of saying to myself, like, where has this fella been? I've been here a couple of years now, and I thought I'd met every Irish speaker in Toronto. But then you showed up, and you were well able to communicate.
I think a few points out to that.
That's no harm.
And I'm not even joking.
Yeah, no, definitely, sure. Yeah, releases
inhibitions. But the other thing actually that surprised me about that too was that I was coming up with expressions that they just seemed to come from nowhere, and I was kind of what's the word I'm looking for? I was encouraged by that as well too. I thought, well, that's good. It means there's something there that I'm, like that I wasn't even conscious of these expressions and words, but I was able to, like I did, I remember that night too. I remember feeling stuck sometimes, and but I think I managed to get quite a bit of what I wanted to say across.
It was great. It's always like, I love meeting people who are up for speaking the language, and regardless of ability. But like, it's kind of like, I use the analogy of a tap where, when it's turned on, it's in full flow, like there's no stopping it, but sometimes it won't go, or it's stuck, or whatever, and it comes in spits and spurts, but more practice obviously is the key. But it's that's fantastic that you had that. Do you think you would have had that epiphany living, if you still lived in Ireland, or was living abroad, kind of sometimes that can give people a boost living abroad?
I think it's hard to say. It's hard to say because it was very specific, and it had to do with being in Guidor. I mean, because I actually the week before I had been in the Aran Islands, and I had been in Connemara and in Rossaville, and so we went. There's a pub called on Cave beside the ferry in Rossaville, and we had time, so we went in there for a pint before we got the ferry, but. I noticed most people there were speaking Irish, And actually, there was even a guy from Donegal who was singing in Irish as well too. So that was so my Canadian son was with me. And so I think that was kind of, a treat for him to hear something like that. He's like, wow, he just, so I don't know if I would have had the same, but I think I would. I think that just that particular moment. Yeah. But it's also too when I think of it, I suppose it didn't just come out of the blue. I have been thinking about doing this for years, and even a few years ago, I started doing this. I started kind of looking online for groups. Maybe I didn't look that hard. I couldn't find anything, and then I started doing Duolingo, and I did that for a few months, and I don't know.
No, I know. Mm-hmm. Your children, what's their relationship like with Ireland?
So they love it. Yeah, they really love it back there. And, again, I wanted them to feel a connection with it. But, saying that, I never got them involved in Gaelic football here. I never got them involved in hurling. I don't know. I think I was just too preoccupied with my own, not just my own career, but with working and managing a family and whatnot. But in terms of going home, they feel very connected with the place. So they've been back in Athenry many times, and back up in my dad's home place in Mayo, and in Galway, and even this time my son Connor was with me for a week. Now, so he's 20 now, so he was able to kind of go off with his cousin Paddy from Headford, and then I brought him to Connemara and to the Aran Islands. And we were, we went into the sauna in Loch Corrib, close to Headford, and he just loved it. He had a fantastic time. And he had a few days on his own then up in Dublin. Well, when I say on his own, my Canadian nephew was backpacking around Europe, and he met us there at that time as well too. So the two of them took off to Dublin and kind of did their own thing there for a few days. But they love it. They really do. So
that's nice. Yeah, yes.
It is. Yeah.
And would they have any inclination to ever live in there in the future?
I think so. Yeah, like Jack is the oldest. He's 22. He definitely. So he's almost finished. He's done a 4-year game design course at Sheridan, and so he's actually finished this year. But he talks about it. He talks about maybe doing a placement in Dublin, and he, over the years, he talks a lot about living in Galway, and so I think it's possible. You never know.
Really hope you enjoyed that chat with Gerry. I want to thank him for sitting down and discussing his life with me. Hopefully we'll meet again in a Pop-Up Gaeltacht in the future. Once again, all feedback is welcome. You can email me. My email address is in the description of the podcast, or you can find me on social media. It's lovely getting messages from strangers and talking about the podcast and their stories of what brought them to Toronto. I would still encourage people to download the episodes and to share them with friends and family. Downloads are the easiest indicator for me to gauge how many people I am reaching with these conversations, so I would really appreciate it. Thanks to Natalie Barbuti, who provided the logo for the podcast, and thanks to Shannon Heaton, who provided the music you are now listening to. You'll find all of her music on Spotify. There'll be another episode of Irish in Toronto in 2 weeks, and until then, slán go fóill.